Okay, everybody, you see we're all back over. Okay, everybody, you see we're back here over to my dad's shop, and that's right, B&B wraps.
I thought you had everything figured out.
Of course I do, you know. It's just
I know.
black and black and black and black and
Just
black.
running.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Barrel's Garage. Look at this. It's finally happened. I finally got a live out again. How y'all doing tonight? It looks like we got Twisted Mopar's Garage. What's going on? Great to see you, man. John, the show car builder. Great to see you, man. We got a special topic coming out this time. We're going to talk about rat rods. My favorite kind. Of all the custom cars, I just absolutely love rat rods. Yeah, I seen you sneaking on in there. How you been? And like any of my other lives, I've got the link posted up there. If any of y'all want to just click on in and join on in, it saves the typing. Come on in. We'll talk about anything and everything, but we're gonna kind of focus on rat rods. And look at there. We got the Mrs. One-Eyed Cat. Wendy, what's going on? You got Don hiding back there? Tell him hello too. Wish I knew something about rat rods, huh? I think everybody knows a whole lot about them.
Hey,
There we go. John, what's going on?
not much. Just sitting here by the stove, keeping warm by the fire.
Getting pretty cold out where you're at?
It's getting there. We're
Getting
gonna
there,
get
huh?
cold. Yeah, gonna get colder yet, but it's
We got a little bit of a warm up. Not much of a warm up, but we got a little bit of a warm up. Enough to melt the snow a little bit and turn it all to muck and nasty.
yeah, out here it's always. I live in Washington State, so it's raining, more rain.
Oh,
Used
over
to
on
them out
the
here.
on the coast side,
Yeah,
I've got family up in the Seattle area.
yeah. I live at the foothills, basically, of the mountains.
Oh, cool. Snoqualmie.
Yeah, that Squamish area.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you came in tonight.
Yeah, I always get to your lives where you're already pretty into your live for a little while.
And Lord knows I ain't done one for a little while. Oh, work has been hectic to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, I've been busy too. I haven't been able to do videos too much like I used to, and almost seems like I dropped off the YouTube a little bit, but I watch still.
Yeah, that's the kind of the state I've been into. I get a chance to watch a little bit of everybody's. In passing, though. If I'm
Yeah,
lucky, I can leave a thumbs up. Looks like Twisted
yeah.
Mopar got to drive a 26 Veli's car. What a car. I, I can't think of what that is.
26. What?
Veli's?
I've never heard of that.
Was a relative of John Deere, sold from 1908 to 28. Huh. Yeah, that's a new one by me. Of course, you
Yeah.
get back in those years, there was a lot of car companies.
Oh yeah, there's people were just building them in their own barns and garages and calling them whatever.
Which is part of what we're talking about tonight. The rat rods. Oh God, I love them.
Yeah, me too.
Just liberating.
My,
Probably the
my
most misunderstood, but yeah, they're a lot of fun.
yeah, I built my car, my Studebaker, more like a, I don't know. I always call it a jalopy, like they did.
Yeah.
The guys built them at when it came out of World War II. They were just looking for whatever they could build to have an adrenaline rush.
You just slap whatever you can from wherever you can together to get yourself a car. It's a form of
Yeah.
rat rodding, hoopty, jalopy, shop built, build in progress. Good Lord, it's gone by so many different names.
Yeah.
And when it first started out, they were called doodle bugs. I got one right here. This is one we built. It's hard to believe, but that actually started out as a 1929 Massey Harris tripod tractor. And every time something would break on it, we would just fabricate something different to keep it going. It's just a shop tractor, is all it is.
Yeah.
We built
But
this, so
it originally was a tractor originally.
yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing left Massey Harris on it now, though, is the seat. We've replaced everything down to the seat. Because
That's funny.
getting parts for a Massey Harris is next to impossible.
Yeah, I would think.
It's got a little 2000 cc or 2 liter, I guess, Pinto engine that's powering it now. It's got onboard air. We ran a York compressor on it, and it just moseys around and picks the heavy stuff up and puts it back in the back, or brings it around from the back to the shop. As you can see here, Dad's pulling around a deuce and a half transfer case, the old spare transfer case that we had for our monster truck.
Oh,
But that's kind of where rat rodding started from, is you take cars and make them into tractors or farm equipment.
yeah, that's what I considered like a doodle bug, is when they took some car and they turned it into a tractor. But that looks like a doodle bug to me.
And in fact, right there, where that I think where that Envoy is sitting, that Massey Harris tractor sat there. That was a hayfield at one time. It sat out there for decades. Nobody thought it ran. And when we bought that property and extended our property back, they threw that old tractor in for free because it wasn't worth a whole lot. And I'll be dadgum if we didn't get that thing running. All we had to do is just drain the oil at it, change the oil, put a distributor cap on it, wires and all that. That's some gun fired.
Yeah,
But it kept spitting axles.
oh,
That was the biggest draw on it, and it was pretty tired after sitting out in that field when the wide open for, good Lord, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm helping a guy clean up a property, and there's, I don't know, just approximately over 250 vehicles or machinery and trucks, tractors, and out there. And we're
Oh,
trying to get
sweet.
some of the stuff running. And we've got a few of the semi trucks running, and some of the stuff I videotaped and put on YouTube.
Oh,
There's
way
a really
cool.
there's a big crane. It's probably from the 50s, I would think, 50s or 60s, and it's like a huge. It has it has tandem front steering axles that are hydraulically steered together,
Ooh,
and then it
those are
has
fun.
tandem dually axles that are these are semi truck, size axles, and it has a really big gas straight six in it, and it has a crane on the back part of the body of the truck, and so it's just a single seater cab because your crane boom is right next to your passenger seat where that would be, and that's where the motor sits for the truck, is underneath the box that the crane boom sits on. And the crane has its own like big straight six motor, and it's an old cable crane with a bunch of winches and cables inside of it and stuff. And I've got the motor running for the
Uh-huh.
truck, and eventually when I get the air brakes freed up, I'm going to drive it off of that property and over to the property where I live, and then try to
Sweet.
completely set up the whole crane. So it's something to, maybe I'll bring junk cars out here and drop something from like 50 feet in the air and smash a car. Make videos doing that with it. Maybe.
A crane would come in awful handy. If you can get that thing going, yeah.
Well, it runs real good. It's it's surprising. I just, cleaned up the points and the distributor cap. I pulled those spark plugs out and cleaned those,
Uh-huh.
oiled the cylinders down, and I videotaped all this process of it was just a bunch of we'll get it to run, we'll get it to run videos. And then finally I got it to run after like 3 videos. But
Any idea what year it is?
It's from at least like the 50s or 60s. I mean,
Late 50s, early 60s, around there? Heavy equipment is hard to pin down a year because they usually don't put they don't change year to year to year.
Yeah, I'm guessing, when did they start putting hydraulics on stuff like that?
Hydraulic steering.
It has that's the only hydraulics it has. Out of like that whole, it's all cables.
Everything else is cable and PTO.
Yeah, it's all cable. It has like the crane portion of it has its own motor, but that motor just runs a gearbox that runs like, I think there's like three winches inside there, and that whole cab rotates around in a circle. So that one engine runs a gearbox or some kind of gear assembly that can run 3 different winches and then spin the thing in a circle.
Whoa,
Yeah,
that's gonna be fun to get into.
yeah. And the cables, none of it. I mean, the cables look decent. They're not all rusted and really. I mean, you don't. I've climbed around on it and grabbed onto the cables with my bare hands, and they're not frayed. They're
Uh-huh.
not cutting you or nothing like that. So
You don't get the porcupine slivers in your hands.
no,
I know working around cables, boy, you got to be careful. Those things will cut you up like a saw blade.
yeah, they can. Well, yeah, we've just been cleaning up on this property, and whatever the guy, you know, doesn't feel like trying to get running. Some like last week, it was I don't know what year it was, an international bulldozer, and it had a hydraulic, like to lift the blade up and down,
Uh-huh.
but you couldn't pivot the blade. It was just maybe you could turn like turnbuckles or something to pivot the blade, but it didn't have a blade on it. So
Uh-huh.
it had the hydraulic lifting mechanism that would attach to the blade to lift it, but part of like the drop boxes on the side of it to the gears that
Uh-huh.
would run down to the main like sprocket that turns the tracks. It was broken half on one side.
Yeah, torqued out. That's pretty
Yeah,
common on that old stuff.
and then after cutting it apart more, I noticed the main like shaft that held the sprockets in
Uh-huh.
place, so those gears would turn the sprocket on that main. It's like 4 or 5 inches solid steel, and it went all the way through the machine from one side to the other. It was bent on one side of the machine. So, I mean, I can't get the thing to slide out. I unhooked it all the way, and it should slide out of there, but I can't get it to slide out. Or
Yeah,
push
it
on.
could be
I'm
tough.
using another excavator too, so I'm pushing on that shaft with an excavator bucket, and it's not even budget.
Not even
It's
budging. Yeah,
no,
it sounds like
because
it's
when
heat
it
froze
bent,
itself in.
yeah, it actually broke part of the case that holds it straight in line, because where it bent was right there in the middle, so it broke part of its housing that it supported in the in the machine, like the big gearbox of the machine, basically. So I
I
got that now yesterday. I just got it, so it was like got the motor disassembled and the frame rails all off of it. And I'm
Has
gonna
it got the
try to.
big 6 in it, or is it just a 4-cylinder?
I think it's a 4-cylinder, but it's a it started on gas, but
Yeah,
then
it's got a
would kick
pony
over.
motor. Yeah.
No, it doesn't have a pony motor on it. It's not that big of a machine. It has an electric starter on it,
Uh-huh.
but the way I was looking at it, and the guy that owns the property, he was looking at it, he was like, we're thinking the motor, because it had spark plugs on it, but then it had injectors and what looked like a diesel injection pump and injectors. So we were thinking the motor starts up on gasoline,
And
and
then
then
you
after
throw the switch.
running, and then it will switch over onto diesel and run off of diesel. But
After they warm up a little, and then you throw that lever, and then it lights off on diesel. It's and it starts to smoke and vibrating, and then comes to life again. Yeah,
yeah,
they're pretty cool. Just a little four-cylinder, though, huh? It
Well,
sounds like a
not a little.
crawler.
Yeah, it's a bulldozer,
Uh-huh.
but it's not a little four-cylinder. I mean, it's 4 feet tall sitting on the oil pan on the ground.
Yeah,
So
they're big.
it's a big four-cylinder for a four-cylinder, but just scrap
the-
metal.
The logging
That's-
company here in town, they've got what is it, a WD-50 dozer. It's a 50 or a 51. It's got the big six-cylinder in it, though. And it's got a supercharger on the side of it. That'd be a what, 671 supercharger?
Yeah, probably. That's a
Hollis and
newer
Chalmers, they're the ones that pioneered them.
machine.
So
Yeah,
it's
that
right around one of the
that's
first years. But same thing is
Yeah.
wrong with it. You get in it, one side doesn't work, so it just goes in circles, big circles. It's huge. It's real big.
yeah, yeah. There's on the property. There's the bulldozer I'm tearing apart. There's another bulldozer that has a front end loader bucket on the front of it. There's 2 of those front end loader bucket dozers on the property. And then there's another one that's all torn apart. And then there's another one up on a flatbed truck. And then a big, like D9 cat sized one. But it's probably 50, early 50s or late 40s, because it has no hydraulics and it has a cable blade with all winches. And we're trying to get that one running because it's big and cool, old and cool. We got the pony motor running. It's that big of a machine. It actually has a gas pony motor to start the big, probably straight 6 diesel motor. It's a D9 or bigger cat. The tracks are up to your waist. But
Yeah, that
some of
ollie, that 50 ollie. Yeah, the tracks come up to about here. You gotta climb
Yeah.
up the tracks. The blade is, it's about an 8-foot blade.
oh yeah,
It's huge.
that's
Like
a
I
lot
said,
bigger.
same thing is wrong with it. It's busted that drive shaft, and there's no way I can get it out, and there's no way I could even try. That stuff is way too big for any tools I got. He's been
Yeah.
after me for a good probably 10 years now to try to get that going, and it's too big for me.
Yeah, I mostly use a blowtorch and the excavator that's out there. The guy he bought the property with all this stuff on it, and I met him out here.
Is there a lot of like 2-ton, ton and a half trucks on there too?
Oh yeah,
Those are good,
Bunch of 'em.
especially in the 50s. That's the same cab as a half ton.
yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of Fords and a couple Chevys, internationals, a lot of internationals out there. Like there's international pickup trucks, international travelers, scouts, big flatbed, like 2-ton international trucks, cabovers, bunch of different
Ooh.
cabovers. There's like 4 or 5 like 50 era cabover Fords. Cool, like the Ford that had like the V8 emblem right in the hood grill area, like that style of body.
And you got a hold of all of that stuff?
Oh, I didn't get a hold of it. I'm helping the this guy bought the property out. It's like 12 acres, and it's just covered in these cars. But it's a steep hillside
Uh-huh.
that the original owner of the property took that big bulldozer and just plowed in on the hillside all these driveways and roads, and then filled them in with cars.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Yeah. Like I just pulled the Cadillac out of there, I think it's like a 70s or maybe early 80s Cadillac 2-door.
Like an Eldorado or Seville or
Um, Probably Seville, or I don't
they
know.
got
It's
that
big.
weird trunk where they kind of come back and then they got that weird slant back trunk thing on the back.
Mm,
Those
no,
were the Sevilles. They were kind of funny looking. I think 80, 81, 82. Front wheel drive,
no, this is a rear-wheel drive Cadillac.
rear wheel. Okay,
Yeah.
it'd be like a DeVille then, big one.
Yeah, big Cadillac with a freaking huge hood. The Cadillac, they said the hood was like as big as Texas. That's the Cadillac. But yeah, it's a rear-wheel drive. It's the one that, like, out here in California, or out in California and out here, people fix these ones into lowriders.
Yeah,
That's what they do with these Cadillacs, is they turn them into lowriders. So
late
I have a,
70s. That's a good look for those back in the later 70s.
yeah. So I have a group of friends out here that are into lowriders, and out of the group of guys, there's probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them Cadillacs. So
Way cool.
I'm helping the guy clean this property up, and I even go up there and I help him doing the scrap metal daily, every day of the week. But on Saturdays and stuff, sometimes we just go out there and clear the property, cut trees, burn stuff, burn the wood and bushes, and build a cabin. And so he's given me some of the cars that I like that I'm showing interest into, or I see that old Cadillac. I was like, man, I picture this old Cadillac fixed up like this on wire whims and hydraulics and stuff. And he's like, well, if you can find time to do that, or find someone to sell it to, or whatever, go for
Boy,
it.
I would be all over one of those cab overs. Boy, that would look so good going down the road as a car hauler, hauling your little hot rod right there. That would just be fantastic.
Yeah, there is actually one of the cab overs is an old scrap truck,
Uh-huh.
because it has a flatbed on the back, and it has the big round. Remember how they used to just put the big round bumper on the back of the flatbed truck, and they just had the massive big winch that was PTO, and the bed didn't even tip or nothing, but you could just hook onto your chain onto that car and just drag it up right over your rear bumper and pull it right onto your flatbed. That's there is one of those flat Fords out there like that.
Boy, that would be a good one to get a hold of for you. Like I said, going down the road with your little hot rod on the back of it there, oh, that would look good.
Yeah, I ended up getting a truck that I liked better than those Ford cab overs. It's in better shape body wise than those cab overs are. The cab overs they need a lot of rust repair. But I
Leave it.
ended up, well, it's structural. You need like floors, and you put your footsteps. When you open the door in one of those cab overs, you have a footstep, and they're all just rotted away. So,
Man, if I had a trailer in the time, I would be right over there with you. I would snag them suckers right up. Building the floor is actually
not too hard.
not
No.
too hard, especially in those, because there isn't much floor.
No.
You get into those old trucks like that, if anybody rode with you, you had to really like them because they was almost sitting in your lap. They were so small.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. But I ended up getting off of the property. It's somewhere around the 1940s. International. I think it's maybe like a KB10 or maybe a KB12 international truck. Like this one, it was probably some kind of log truck because it has the pintle hitch on the back of it has like a 4-foot long extension off of the back of the frame of the truck for like it would have been towing a log truck or log
Yeah, that
trailer.
sounds like a log setup for the. Oh, good Lord! I was just gonna say it. So when you hook a trailer on it, your trailer tracks right with you.
Yeah. It didn't have the bungs on the truck part, but I mean there was so much stuff around that property. They're probably still there laying in the bushes somewhere. Because like I've already cut up one international like that same year log truck, and it did have the bungs on the back of it. But the cab, that truck was so rusted that the frame was bad and the cab was really falling apart. And so I just cut it up and then kept pieces of the cab just to save some of that sheet metal to build something else out of. And then the other truck that I got, I had my friend go out and take his like bulldozer out there. It's like a D8 or D6 or something cab, and a newer one. And we took his bulldozer out there to move the semi truck off of the property because it was so big. I couldn't get it to like move. I was trying to get it started for a few videos. I was trying to I got the motor broke free, and I was going to try to get it to run, but I was getting time crunch because I was trying to do Rat Rod Magazine's build off from this last year's build off. I was trying to get all my stuff lined up to do that as my build off project. So I was just like, I gotta abandon trying to get this whole truck running and just get a machine out here that I know can move the truck down the hill so we can get another truck out here to load it and then get it over to my property where I'm staying at. So I ended up getting it out here, but then time issue, didn't have still enough time to do the build off. So
time's always the hardest one to come up with.
Yeah, I talked to the people with Rat Rod Magazine and like got a spot to be in the build off, but then didn't officially sign up because I was just like, just didn't have the time, and I was just like, I don't want to put myself through a huge amount of stress, and it's gonna cost me more money to get the project to the show and be part of the Rat Rod build off than I'll put into my project, because I build stuff so thrifty that I a big international truck. I got it for free. My friend just gave it to me because he was like, "You're gonna do that build off. I'm gonna help you." So what I want to do with that truck is take and put like a 12 valve Cummins in it or some kind of diesel motor. I've been coming up with like actual semi-truck diesel motors from that property, and I might go full, make a big rig with it.
Make a cat rod, huh?
Yeah, like I ended up getting off the property. It's probably, I don't know, probably around an 80s international semi-truck,
Uh-huh.
but the motor, it had a Cummins big straight six Cummins in it. The motor was all torn apart, and the cab was all pieces missing out of it. This stuff
You
has
get
been picked
into
apart and pulled
anything
apart
that
so much.
big, boy, the cost of parts about kill you.
Yeah,
It's tough.
so that's why I'm trying
Semi-truck
to.
parts. Yeah, it's commercial, so they know they can charge whatever they want to charge for it. And they
Yeah.
do.
So what I'm trying to do is like looking at this stuff and be like, okay, this truck is strapped because it's missing so much. To fix it as is, it's not happening. But what can I salvage off of it for my rat rod build off project? And that truck, it was an international. So I kept the whole frame because it was aluminum frame in it. I kept
Aluminum.
the front axle. Yeah. So I stripped the whole truck down to just the frame and the front axles, and then I could haul it on my car trailer. It would handle the weight of that. So it's a big semi-truck frame, but it's aluminum. So what I want to do is take and use that frame and take my 1940s 47 International truck and put that truck onto the newer frame that's aluminum. And I have another 1947 International K7. It's only a 2.5-ton truck.
Uh-huh.
And what I want to do is take those two trucks and combine the cab and make an extended 4-door cab.
4-door.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few of those. I tell you the truth though, I've never seen one that I, in my opinion, that they pulled off though. You got the bubble cab, but when you extend them, you kind of they don't look right. The proportioning's wrong. I don't know. You got to find a way to make the bubble rise up some more to make up for that length. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why, like the other International that was really rusty, like I kept the roof panel.
Uh-huh.
But I might just try to use like a roof off of like a panel truck or something like that, because then it's more bubbly and rounded. But what I'm gonna try to do with the cab is when I section the back portion of the cab onto it, I'm gonna take the left doors and I'm going to put them on the right side, and I'm going to take all the right stuff and I'm going to put on the left side. So I have suicide rear doors.
In the rear.
Yeah.
Like they did with the cars back then.
Yeah. And then I'm going to take the wing windows out of those truck doors too, and take basically the left door and cut the rear section of the door off where it's the window frame of the door, and then I'll take that and I'll put it from the right door, and then I'll put it on the left door in front of it. So I'm going to cut the wing window section off, and then from the opposite door, you cut the back section of the door off, and right down along the beading of there's a bead that runs down the side of it, cut right above that, and then just replace that whole section of the door from the back side, and then you're going to stick it on the front side of the other door to make the door look symmetrical, so it doesn't have no slope for a windshield, and the wing window.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to be a whole lot of Mickey Mouse and Wrangler stuff, because you're going to take the left doors and you're going to put them on the right side of the truck, but then you're going to take other doors and you're going to cut those parts off and put them on the left and right sides of the truck too, to make the doors look a certain way. Because you know how when you open up those old truck doors, the back portion of the door, it just has a nice rounded way it looks, right? And then the front part of the door with the wing window, it just slants down. I want the thing to look more symmetrical. So, and then after I get the cab all built on it, then it's going to get like a big flatbed on the back, maybe like a tilt deck of some kind to haul the hot rod on.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
That's a pickup version of it, but
yeah, the pickup versions, they look a lot different than the
big truck.
than the big trucks. The big trucks kind of they almost look like a 30s era front end and fenders, because they have butterfly hoods and they have the really big clamshell fenders. So like when you get up there, you can sit up on top of the fender and then open up the hood. Yeah, that's like the truck I got.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of there. With
Yeah,
the
that's
oval
like
back window. Yeah.
yeah, that's like my KB7. Because I have a tandem axle rear truck too. Or yeah, that's like the KB7 right there.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that's so I want to take that cab of a truck and then make it a 4-door. And it really did. The roof doesn't bubble up too high on those, so I think it'll look cool.
It'd be interesting to see what you can come up with it. Like I said, I've seen a lot of 4-door conversions, and they're just
I've seen them too, and they just sometimes they're just like, what did
way
you
out
do
of
this for?
proportion.
Yeah, way out of proportion. And like, I was even tossing this idea through my head, like, and it might make it look really out of proportion, is take the rear window, because I'll have 2 extra rear windows. And if I took the rear windows, because they're like an oval rear window, and if I took the window and I cut it, and I cut the center out of it and made it a round window, or like a very small oval window, and then I put it in the side of the cab behind, so it would be in between the 2 doors. Or put it, then it would look like a car body, but
Okay.
yeah, the first idea was to put it in between the 2 front door, in between the 2 doors. So it would your front door, and then it would be a window, and then you'd have your back door. And what I want the cab, I do want the cab to be long enough to be able to either make the front seat fold down flat, like scoot forward all the way, and then the backrest would fold down flat and be a big bed.
Like a
'Cause
Rambler, like
yeah,
like an
'cause I
old
want to be able,
Rambler.
yeah, I want to be able to like take this on road trips, like take my car, and go to car shows with this big old truck and my hot rod on the back. But then I want to be able to like not spend money on hotels and that kind of stuff because I'd rather just, I couldn't sleep in a hotel having my truck and trailer or my rigs out there in the parking lot. I'd be like too worried.
Yeah. And if you're right there with them, well, you'll hear if somebody's monkeying around with any of their stuff.
Yeah, unless they do what they did to my uncle. And my uncle was a long haul truck driver, and they took some our sleeping gas from the dentist or whatever, and they put a little hose inside his cab, and they filled his cab full of sleeping gas, and then they broke in, and he was sound asleep while they were in his truck.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. He woke up to the place all ransacked, and the little window was busted out of it. He was like, felt all like he did after he went to the dentist before. So it was like,
Good night.
well, yeah. They could have killed him because they could have overdone it. It's not like they had a meter telling your pulse or anything like they do at the dentist.
Yeah, thieves be thieves. Can't get rid of them, unfortunately. They just keep sprouting up everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm glad I live in a small community that, everybody looks out for everybody. So we don't have a big problem of it here. In the city, you do, but here.
Yeah, it's the same way out here. Out here where I live, it's pretty much relaxed, and I don't have to worry about someone taking stuff. But out, you never know when you're traveling across the states.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that'd be a cool little hauler for your little hot rod right there. And especially if you could do one of those Rat Rod magazine build offs. That I've always wanted to do one myself.
Yeah,
Where was the show this last year?
I think they have it in the same spot every year. It's in Minnesota. Rat Saloon, Rat something. It's in Minnesota though. So for me, it's all the way across the United States. Like
Pretty much me too. I'm right next to you.
okay.
Right here in Idaho, you got a little bit farther to go.
Yeah, I probably got another,
Because I'm about
4 or
10,
500
12
miles
hours from
away.
you?
Yeah.
Well, that's about how long it takes me to get to Yakima.
Oh, okay. Well,
Or the
Yakima's,
Tri-Cities.
it's
And
there.
Still a ways
It's
to go from there, I know.
Yeah, I probably 4 or 5 hours, 5 hours to get to Yakima, I think. But yeah, it's like it would be a long haul to get over there. That's why I say it'll cost me more money to get to the show than it will for my whole entire build-off project.
I
And
know
then
they
that's-
did that one for Rat City Ruckus too, but that was in Vegas. And there was a
Yeah.
group out of Salmon, Idaho that pulled an old school bus It was like a 50 something. It was an early 50s. I think it was a GMC school bus. They drug it up out of the woods, took it down there, and then they built it. They won it that year, but that was at in Las Vegas.
Huh.
So they must have different ones all over. Then they've got their big rat rod cruise off where they go all the way from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's like a big rod run. That's a pretty cool event.
I think that's where they're based out of is Minnesota.
I think so. That's where the magazine got all started and everything.
Yeah.
I used to be a
But the-
subscriber to that magazine. In fact, I bought their book back when it came out about, what, 10 years ago or so? But I haven't followed them for quite a while.
Yeah, I used to buy the magazine when it was in the stores, but then when COVID hit, all that stuff changed and they quit making magazines.
Yeah,
just-
everything's
they-
gone digital.
They kept the prescribers sending them magazines, but they didn't send them to the stores anymore. And I just a little while, a few years ago, I just decided, I need to stop buying all these damn magazines. Because I really got into buying magazines. Like, I have a collection of lowrider magazines that's like extremely ridiculous. I mean, it's a pile of magazines 4 feet tall. But
Yeah, Doug
they
sure
are-
it did. It run off everybody that Shy built or all the corporate built ones, the ultra fancy ones that have only got a 2-gallon gas tank on them. Yeah, those guys couldn't go to that.
Yeah,
Which is the number 2 rule of hot rods or of rat rods. There's 3 rules. Number 1, they got to be safe. Safe for everybody else on the road. So you don't want to be driving around in something with a bump steer up the yin yang. Yeah, you got to make them safe. You got to build them safe. Rule number 2, you got to drive them. You got to show everybody that they do work and they're dependable and they're reliable. All that stuff. And that right there, that's rule number 2, sealed in, I don't know, sealed in cement.
yeah,
And then rule number 3, they got to be safe for yourself. Don't go out there and kill yourself. Don't make a death trap and give the rest of us a bad name. But other than that, that's the only 3 rules of a rat rod. The rest, that's up to your imagination.
well, the first one, my car squeezes by that one just a little. The second one, it gets that one's pretty good there. The third one, we're pulling hairs on that one. It's a death trap. I mean, it's a 1918 Studebaker 4-door convertible
Uh-huh.
that, like, the top of the door is like just a few inches
Above your knee.
Yeah. So when I'm saying it's dangerous for other drivers on the road because they just don't see it because it's small and low. Like you pull up next to a normal car and you look at their tires and they're at your shoulder height.
Or yeah,
So
a semi truck passes you. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
a
You
semi
get
truck
that
tires,
backdraft through the semi trucks now that have got the wind deflectors on underneath their trailer. They're not so bad.
yeah,
In fact,
Well,
those are put on there for motorcycles because if you're on a motorcycle going down the freeway and one of those trucks comes by or you go to pass one, they'll suck you in. They try to suck you in.
yeah, it can. My car is so low, I could pass under a semi truck. I could go underneath the trailer easily. So like
But
when
it
you're in
looks
this,
pretty safe.
when you're, semi truck tires, the top of the tire is like maybe at the top of your head. I mean, you're literally sitting like four or like you're probably there's 2 inches under the car, and then there's a 4-inch frame rail, and you're sitting on top of that practically. So, I mean, you got a little cushion, inch or two of that. So, I mean, you're sitting 8 inches off the ground. Like you swing the door open, and your butt is literally like 6 to 8 inches off the ground. So when you're down in this car, you're down on the ground. It
There
feels
we
like
go.
you're riding it. Yeah,
We can
that's
see you're pretty good there now.
yeah, that's what it looks like. I mean, it can lay all the way on the ground because it has airbags too. So I do have welded like 2-inch solid blocks on the frame rails that are 6 inches wide, and I put them sideways on the frame, and you let the air out when you're driving, and let those set on the ground, and those shoot sparks a good 20 feet behind the car.
So
Only
it
going
does
like
totally lay frame.
oh yeah, pretty much. Not in the front. The front is just normal. It's just shocks and springs.
Oh,
But
it's static in the front,
yeah, it's static in the
just
front.
bagged
But
in the
once,
back.
yeah, just in the back. I just need to get a good working space where I can set the car up, and I have the airbags. I pretty much have everything I need. And when I built the air system in the car, I built it with air. It's a valve body off of a plastic injection mold machine, and
Oh, really?
it had one inlet that was like 1 inch, and then it had like 6 outlets that are like 3/4 inch or half-inch size. And so they're manual valves. I just put a valve on the inlet where you can like your air compressor and your tank can build up pressure, and then you can bring that pressure into the valve body, and then you can individually work the airbags. So in and I put triangulated 4-link suspension in the back.
In the back.
So it actually, if you just drop the air in one airbag in the back, it'll just set that side of the car on the ground, and the car looks like it's all tilted sideways quite a bit. So,
I've yet to
but
do one bagged up for myself. I've done static on all of them. I've got a complete bag kit. I just haven't done it yet. Looks like
yeah,
you're running a electric pump compressor on that one.
yeah. I went to Harbor Freight, and I just got one of their bigger 12-volt air compressors that you would
Uh-huh.
keep in your car for a flat tire, and I just plumbed it up into the air system, into the air tank, and I just figured Harbor Freights are everywhere, and if I ever have an air pump problem, I want to simplify getting one, and Harbor Freights are everywhere around here. If I'm at a car show, I have a problem, I can just have my friend run me to Harbor Freight and go get an air pump and slap it in there. And everything else is mechanical. The valves are all mechanical valves. They're levers. Most air systems are all like electronic
Solenoid.
or
Yeah.
solenoid. Those solenoid valves in our Washington State air have so much moisture those air systems do not last, and people just replace they just every year they're having to rebuild their air system. Everybody I've ever met with an air system, they're like, every year I have to rebuild it. I have to get a brand new aluminum tank. I have to get brand new valves and maybe some other parts because they just get filled with water, and all the moisture in the air we got, the air compressor just compresses it and fills your stuff up with too much moisture, and they go bad. And this one lady that I met, they were taking her, it was a car that Gene Winfield built and painted and
Linfield, huh?
had air. It was a Lincoln Zephyr, a purple Lincoln Zephyr. And when they took it to, I think, SEMA or a big show like that, it wouldn't come up off the ground out of the trailer. I mean, they brought it there in an enclosed trailer, and Gene Linfield, and he's there, and his whole crew of people's there, and the lady that owns the car's there, and she's like, my car won't lift off the ground, so we can't drive it into the show, and like to get it in its display right now, we have to tear apart the whole air system and rebuild it before we can get it in there. And that's what, luckily they were in the area of SEMA, and the parts were just available because she has a fancy air system with all electronic valves and fancy stuff. So
Yeah, they get complicated, and I think
she
the
was
most
really
simple
frustrated.
one to use, and Dougster's kind of onto one here. What I've used though is a York AC compressor. Uh, Ford used them all the time in their AC for AC air conditioning. I use those.
Yeah.
That little Doodlebug tractor that we showed right there, it's got it on there. It's got a York compressor on there, and the way the hood comes way back there, there's a propane tank underneath there, and that's the onboard air. It's a big air tank, and that York compressor pumps that up. So if you have to go out back and fill up a tire or anything, you have onboard air. You can even run air tools off of it, and it's so simple because it's already made for a car, and it'll drive right off your accessories.
Yeah,
And
a
they're
lot of
quick. They have a lot of CFM, and you got to regulate them because they'll go up to like 300 psi. So you regulate them down to 120. But if
yeah,
you
a
put that
couple of
on
guys,
there, you hit your switch. They'll go poof and pop right up. It almost like having hydraulics instead of air.
yeah, a couple of guys I know that are into 4x4s because I'm into all
Yep,
different
that's
types
where
of
we
vehicles.
learned it.
And they put those those AC compressors onto their 4x4s, and they build really thick like bumpers that are
Bumpers,
tanks.
great
So then
big, yep, round, yep. You cap them and you plumb that
yeah,
in. There's your holding
so then
tanks. It's your bumpers. Yeah.
yeah, so I've seen them built with those, but I don't know, on a rat rod, I don't know. For my rat rod, putting that on the motor would just be like, I mean, my motor is really simplistic. I don't even have power steering. I have an alternator. And
I
that's
hear
it.
you. I hear you.
I mean, it's a one-wire alternator. It's a Chevy motor, so
That's
it
why
has
I
one
haven't done a
wire.
bag system. It just don't look right up on there.
Yeah, and that's my bag system is all under the floor in the back it's a four-door car, so I got back seats. So all my air systems under the floor for the passenger people in the back seat. So my whole floor comes out of the back of my car to get to my air system. But I only use like a 2 gallon or 1.5 gallon tank. So that air compressor will bring that little tank right up to 100 pounds pretty quickly. I mean, you have to pay attention so you don't just overdo it. And I used 1/4 inch air, or like I used the largest airlines like a semi truck uses on their air brakes and stuff. I used that size of lines to run to my airbags. So my air system, when I let the air out, it hits the ground, like it thumps the ground. Like when I tell people when they're standing next to my car, step back a little bit, because sometimes people will have their toes like underneath the lake pipes, or their toes will be close to the lake pipes on the side of the car, and I've dropped it, and I didn't realize, and they're like, dude, you almost took my toes off. I mean, that was slammed on the ground. And they're like, how did you make your air drop that hard? I mean, your car it's like you just dropped it. Like, it's not like an air system where you go and the car's on the ground. It's just like the air's
Yeah.
gone.
Instant dump.
Instant dump. And it goes up just as fast too. I mean, if I have good air pressure in it, I can, like when I go cruising with the lowrider guys, they're like, do you have hydraulics in that thing? Because it's quick. I'm like, no, it's just air. And it's how I valved it and
Yeah.
big lines. And they're like, oh, okay. So they think it's cool. And it's the triangulated 4-link suspension that I put underneath there. I'm used to building suspension for rock crawling. So I build triangulated 4-link suspension that have big coil springs on there that the axles have articulation of like 3 or 4 feet. So I designed my rat rod suspension to be like that, but only 6 or 7 inches, the travel of it. But it just moves so smoothly like the rock crawlers do. It doesn't bind up or nothing like that, and the rear end is held in really solid left to right. I actually ended up breaking one. I made a little video on it. I broke my rear frame mount where the both left link bars are held onto this bracket that I welded onto the frame, and it broke it. After driving it, it's the way I drive the cars. I, do a lot of burn-offs and stuff like that with it, so it gets abused. I broke the link arm off, or I didn't break it completely off the frame, but it broke enough to the point of like you don't want to drive the car anywhere because it's dangerous now.
There's a little bit of a look at how we do our 4-links. This is on Sir Rats-a-Lot. If you look at the links there, they're actually the leaf spring ends. We cut the leaf springs off, the eyelets off, and we weld square tubing, and you can kind of see it there. I think my mouse is moving there.
I did the same thing. I'm zooming in. I'm on a cell phone, but yeah, I see what you're talking about. I did the same thing. Like,
but this is static.
I ended up buying a Jeep, a newer 2011 Jeep from a Jeep junkyard that went out of business. It was a 4x4 building shop, Olympic Off-Road. They're one of the biggest 4x4 shops in Washington State. But they had a
In fact, that's a
junkyard.
Jeep Cherokee sway bar right there, roll bar, anti-roll bar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
keep going.
I ended up, the Jeep that I bought had a whole bunch of the newer 2000s Jeeps have a 4-link suspension or 5-link suspension. And when people would bring their Jeeps in to have them lift kitted, they would take their stock suspension and throw it inside this particular Jeep that I bought in the auction. So I had all these rod ends with these nice bushings on the end of it, nice rubber bushings.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up taking those bars and I cut them down, because on the frame side of my mount is a Heim joint that's adjustable. If you turn the bar in and out, it'll move left. The one end of it's right-handed thread and the other end's left-handed thread, so you can adjust your suspension underneath your car that way. If you're not like making it perfect, you can get it perfect that way. If you're off a little bit on your mounts or something. So I use those Jeep ends on the axle side of it, like you did put the rubber bushings on the axle side of it, and then on the frame side of it, I put the Heim joints where they're more solid mounted, but all that vibration from the road goes through those rubber bushings and you don't feel it. So, but this is like your lower bar is almost going what looks to me like straight.
Yeah, it's straight.
So
it is triangulated in, but it's parallel with the frame.
Yeah. So what I try to do with those lower bars is triangulate them in a little further, and then the upper bars. So if you look straight down, or if you're laying on your back underneath your vehicle and you're looking straight up at two of the bars on the right side of the vehicle or something, and you're looking straight up at them, they're going to make an X, or two triangles is why it's called triangulated suspension, because on the frame side of it you'll have a triangle, and then on the axle side of it you'll have another triangle, and that's just if you're just on the right side of your vehicle looking straight up at the two bars, they'll be crossing over each other like that. And with that cross over each other like that, that makes the axle, it will not go left to right at all. And with it on both sides like that, it's just bomber proof. I mean, you can, how I built my rock crawling buggy and stuff, I've slammed the rear axle into trees and rocks and all sorts of stuff, and it just does not move. And I wanted to build the
and as you go
like
up
that.
And down, your pinion angle stays exactly the same. That you get no pinion movement.
Yes, and that's another thing that it does too. And I wanted to build my
Volkswagen we did. We call it Dad's Doodlebug. That's what I was doing there. I was trying to find pictures of it. We actually used a Jeep Cherokee 4-link under that one. And it's on the bottom on that one, because it's a lot shorter. We had to cut them way down because we didn't have much room at all in that little Volkswagen. But anyway, it's more like what you're talking about. On this one, you can see they're not much on the bottoms. The top angle is quite a bit, but the bottoms are a little shallow because we got a little length in there. But on the Volkswagen, just like you're saying, they're more of an angle, more of a triangle on the bottom.
Yeah, and that's what to have it set up and the axle move correctly, it needs to be triangulated like that.
And it was all, what year? 88 Jeep Cherokee, Grand Cherokee. 86?
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
God,
all
Lord, I
those
can't
were.
remember now. Hey,
Man,
thank God it's all written. That's another rule of a rat rod. You write all this stuff down, or even better yet, you do videos of everything you do. So if you forget what that part came off of, so you can buy another one, you can go back and watch the video, or you can look it up.
yeah, my rat rod, the list is pretty long with that one. Has a
On this
Ford
truck here, we have 2 folders about this big of every receipt that we had on it. And it's for that. If you need to fix anything, because really the truck is almost stock. Very little, it's just stock stuff from other things that are put into play here.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
have.
we kept the receipts of everything. So if you need to fix any or replace anything, you know what it was.
Yeah,
It's got 98 Envoy coil springs under it.
yeah. I didn't do that on my car. I mean, I just have it in my memory of like what I used, and I used a 70s Ford Courier frame and Mazda pickup trucks. They were like the same square body style as the Mazda pickup trucks were the same. So I used one of those frames because they're really narrow and the body can drop over the top of the frame rails easy. And I just used the stock front suspension off of that. I was going to do a solid axle, but then I was just like, talked to a lot of people and they say my car bounces around a lot. And I wanted it to be, I wanted the Studebaker to be like a go-kart and perform and not bounce around. And I wanted to be able to like, drive it fast down a windy, twisty road. And
The Volkswagen
so,
is like that for us. This one, it's because of the wheel weight. Each one of those tires with the wheel is it's a little over 100 pounds. They're heavy. They're really heavy. And with that being right behind, them duals being right behind the cab, yeah, it rides like a 1-ton truck rolling down the freeway empty. Yeah, it'll beat you up a little bit.
yeah.
I'm used to it. It don't bother
I
me,
want
but she's a little on the
I
rough
want to
side.
Yeah, I want to build one like that with I on this property I'm cleaning up. I'm like, I see stuff. I'm like, oh, I want to build something like with this and like build it like this one day. And so I got a set of axles out of a dump truck that are a big I-beam semi-truck front axle and the semi-truck rear axle, but they're juice brakes, not
Not there.
not air brakes. And that's the reason I kept them, because I was like, they came out of like a 60s Ford dump truck. And I was like, well, being juice brakes, it'd be easy to set up in like a little rat rod or something, and I won't have to worry about air system and air brakes, and that'll be way too much for a rat rod. You put air brakes in a rat rod, you're going to throw yourself through the windshield.
And
But
you
if
don't
you
want to
put,
mess with their brakes.
yeah, and if
It's
you
just
put,
another complication. And you're not
yeah,
pulling that kind of weight. So,
no, and
this is plenty fine.
if you just put like juice brakes in it, because they're big drum brakes, but they're juice. It's kind of weird because you would look at these big axles and you'd be like, why doesn't it have air brakes on it? Because there's big semi-truck housings and stuff, but they just didn't put them on there in those years. It was a big tandem axle dump truck.
There's the Volkswagen that I was talking about.
Oh,
That was our first build, our first official rat rod build.
yeah, I just picked up a Volkswagen a couple months ago.
This one wasn't going to be a Volkswagen. It was going to be a C-cab, little C-cab delivery. We were going to home build the whole body and everything. But trying to title a home build, it's a quite a process. So our neighbor, he down the road, well, he's up and down the block. He runs a restoration shop, and he come across this little bug. He wanted the motor and transmission out of it, transaxle out of it. It's a 73 little bug. The bug was toast. It was junk. It was wrecked all the way down the passenger side. In fact, it was wrecked so bad that it was an inch. This whole quarter side of the car was pushed an inch back from the other side. And the only thing holding it on was 2 body bolts left and a big old wad of Bondo underneath the driver's foot. That's the only thing that was holding it to the belly pan. The car was trash. And we got to looking at it. We'd already built the frame, everything on this car. We just didn't have the body done yet. Got to looking at that, and that might work. So we pulled it up, what was left of the body out, and we made all the floor in it and everything. But yeah, that little bug right there. Well, both of these, the truck and the bug, both of these were headed to the scrapyard. The truck was buried upside down in a potato field, and they put in a center pivot sprinkler, and they had to get that truck out of there, and they were just going to haul it off to the dump. And they pulled by our house and said, "Hey, you want this?" I said, "Sure, I'll take that. I'll do something with it." And it sat in the backyard for about a year, and we ended up pulling it out, and that's where that one came from. But the whole passenger side on that truck was almost gone. The floor was completely gone, just rusted completely out.
Yeah.
There was a steel fence post pinning it upside down in the ground. It had fallen over on a steel post, fence post, and it went right through the top, right in the dead center of it.
Yeah.
That was the truck.
Yeah, I wish I could do something with more of these vehicles on this property that
And you know what we made the floors out of? All the insides of both of those, all the sheet metal, flat sheet metal. That's all
Yeah.
Bluebird school bus.
Perfect.
Makes perfect panels.
Yeah.
And they're just ultra cheap.
My floorboard in my car is part of that plastic injection mold machine that I got the valve body thing off of. I got the plastic injection mold for machine for free. My friend worked at the place, and it was a machine that was outdated and small, but it was still like 10,000 pounds. It was heavy. And I recycled it. I went and picked it up with my trailer and brought it home and disassembled it and took all the, metals, different types of metals off of it and separated it to make as much money as possible. And then anything I thought I could use, like the sheet metal paneling on the thing, which was like 16 gauge, or some of it was even 10 gauge metal. Thing was, it was stout. It was, I mean, my floor in the front part of in the front seats of my floor is like 10 gauge. I didn't even need to put any cross members or bracing into the floor. I just built the floor and welded it together, and
Oh,
it's still
really?
solid. Yeah, I was like, I'm trying to build, structure in this little car in case of an accident. So the floor won't cave in on you or fold in or whatever, but yeah, my Studebaker, I tried to really build it like a jalopy, in the sense of like there's a small handful of receipts that built my car, because everything else was free. Like even the
And
lake
that's the
pipes.
beauty, of a rat rod. They are
Yeah,
the most affordable, budget friendly to do because you're using whatever is at hand, that you
yeah.
can repurpose and make work. The stuff like that, oh man, that is gold, man.
And it's like it teaches you how to be creative. Because like
Exactly.
when I take my car to car shows, it does. I explain to people how I built it and
Hmm.
how I came. I call it a spiritual build. Why?
Exactly.
Why? The reason why it's a spiritual build, because I didn't run out and buy any of this. It all just naturally crossed my path when I needed it at the time, and it was affordable or cheap or
Exactly.
free. Like my carburetor, I still like. I'm just tickled pink that I got this thing. A Holley 650 double pumper spread bore. I got it at the recycling yard. This gentleman was pulling in. I was unloading my truck. This gentleman's backing his trailer in, and I look down in there. I see him backing in, and then all of a sudden I look down again. He's backing up a little too much, and I'm like yelling at him, "Hey, stop! Stop! You're gonna back your trailer into the pile of scrap metal!" And he stops within a few inches. When I finally get his attention in his truck, and he stops, and so we got a conversation going when he gets out of his vehicle and he starts unloading his load. And I'm looking down into his trailer from inside my big flatbed. I'm like, "Are you throwing all that stuff out of your trailer?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah." And the carburetor's upside down and covered up with some stuff a little bit. And I'm like, "What about that big 4-barrel carburetor there? You throwing that out too?" He's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Could I have that?" And he's like, "Well, jump down here and take a look at it, see if you want it." And I jumped down there and picked it up, flipped it over, and oh, it was a Holley carburetor. And I was just like, "I'll take this." And I set it in the back of my flatbed truck. And then he had a Turbo 400 that he had a shift kit in that was freshly rebuilt. And he broke the bell housing, putting a motor in.
Broke it.
And it cracked like a little half moon out of part of the bell housing.
Oh man, right at the starter.
No, just on like the top kind of angle where it starts to go down on one side. Easy area to fix. I mean, you could take another bell housing and literally cut that broken piece out square, and then take another bell housing and put that piece you cut out on there and trace it out and cut out another section of bell housing and then weld it right into it. And then boom, you have a Turbo 400 with a shift kit. And I got that. For it wasn't technically for free, but it was whatever the dumb carburetor weighs in scrap metal prices. and whatever the transmission weighs in scrap metal. Because I took scrap metal out of my truck, but then I put that stuff in my truck. So when I went back over the scale, that little bit of weight was compensated out of my load that I put
They
in.
deducted it out. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, it's a deduction type of thing. So I was just like, I maybe I paid a penny for the carburetor or something in real money weight wise. But so, and you know what? The carburetor, I brought it home. He said it had been sitting on a shelf in a shop for years, and he was never going to put it on a car again. And I brought it home. I stuck it on my car, and I got gas in it, and it fired up and ran. And it was leaking out of the secondary pump. So I was like, okay, I'll get a new pump and put it in there. And I did that, and it stopped
Typical
leaking.
Holly.
And I didn't touch anything else. And it was a little bit too much for my stock Chevy 350, so I had to detune it by putting a smaller pump in it, and I changed the jets to a smaller jets, the main primary jet, and that's it. And it's been running my motor ever since. And you gotta be sensitive with the gas pedal because it's a sensitive gas pedal. And if you give it too much gas, the motor will die. But if you get the motor wound up with enough RPM, then you can give it all the 4 barrels that carburetor has, and that car will just come to life. I've done some videos of driving the car, and in the videos, and I'm on like a kind of windy forested road, so you see the trees and everything around. And when I open up those 4 barrels, it's like the car just went to warp speed. When you look at the videos, because I'm like driving it normally, and then I open up the 4 barrels, and it's just going.
I mean, when
I
you're
don't
only a
have
couple inches off the ground, oh yeah, Lord, you feel it.
Yeah, and the car's,
Like you said, like a
I've never,
go-kart.
yeah, and I've never weighed it. So
Oh, you haven't?
we all know. No, I've never took it over a scale. I wanted to, and I asked the recycle yard that I always go to with my stuff if they mind if I brought my car in here just to weigh it. And
I'm gonna guess
the guy,
2,600. That's just a wild, right off the cuff guess. I'm gonna say 2,600.
I don't know. I don't think it weighs that much. I don't think so. Like the body, the Studebaker body.
You can lift, one
weighs-
guy can lift that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the whole
They are
4-door body.
light.
Yeah, and that's restructured with 1-inch square tubing. I could lift the whole body and carry it and like walk with it. It wasn't like 100 pounds or something, 150 pounds.
Be interesting to see what she does weigh.
And then the rear axles of Dana 44, which those aren't very heavy, and the Mazda or Ford Courier mini truck pickup frame that I cut a good 4 or 5 feet off the back of it is pretty lightweight too. And just a Chevy 350 and a Turbo 400, so it's fairly light. But I am curious to see how much it does weigh.
We're 3,200 on Sir Rats-A-Lot, and we're 2,800 on the Volkswagen. That's our weights. The Volkswagen, I was thinking like you were on yours there, because what the shell of the body on that thing, one guy can pick it up. There ain't nothing to it. Awkward, a lot of awkward weight, but yeah, it don't weigh anything. There was nothing left.
Yeah, like you can just basically just the Studebaker for the front seat has a metal structure for the lean that you lean back up against. And I just got into like the back seat or the front seat area and grab onto that center part of the body, and you can just lift it up, carry it. But yeah,
This
I'm
one here
curious.
is going to be my next build. That motor, that 460 I got out of that 70 Lincoln Mark III
Yeah,
that I showed in those little shorts and stuff like that. That's going
yeah,
in this right here. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the nose on it because, in my opinion, that's one of the ugliest looking Fords. The squish face first series Fords.
yeah.
But this truck I actually got for free when I bought my backhoe. So, well, I got both of them for $900. 1,000
Yeah.
because I gave him $100 to deliver the backhoe. This I had to go up and get with the trailer, but so I'll figure out something to do with it. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
maybe using the hood. I don't know. Going back and forth on it.
My International, the first one I got, the KB7, I bought that for $500, and I took my trailer there and I drove it up onto my big trailer I had and hauled it home. The guy said it just needed, every time he would let it sit for a while, he would have to go and mess with the brake booster and bleed out the brakes. But he could always get the brakes working again, and he could use it, and they used it around the farm and stuff. But I wasn't interested in trying to do that. I've drove it around my properties and stuff like that. I've done a bunch of videos on it too, and but the other International I got, the big one, I got that one for free from the guy that I'm helping clean his property up. He
I
just
would.
was like,
I like your idea of using that as a car hauler for your little Studebaker there. That's right on, man.
well, it's going to be a car hauler for whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Truck, basically.
You build a
Eventually,
car hauler. Yeah, that sucker's going to work.
yeah. Like eventually, what I got too for it is off a witch ditch, I think, or like some kind of machine, like a little tractor witch ditch, and it's a backhoe. So it's just like a backhoe bucket and arm and downriggers. So what I want to do is put that right behind the cab. So can you imagine this big 4-door semi-truck rat rod flatbed with a backhoe arm on the back of it, or right behind
Put a
the cab?
thumb on it. Yeah, even if
Yeah,
it's
I'll
just a
put
mechanical thumb for the
yeah,
backhoe, so you can reach out and you pick stuff up, put it on.
yeah.
You're right on,
I'll
man.
I'll put a thumb on it, definitely for sure. I run excavators and I have a little mini Traco myself, and so yeah, it'll definitely have a thumb. It'll be like it'll be the rat rod going to get vehicle. You know,
That's
you
what I
want
got
me
to
to
do
go
with
get
mine. I'm gonna put it'll just be a mechanical thumb, but I'm gonna put a thumb on mine backhoe. That is just too handy to have.
yeah, like I want to build this International is going to be able to go out in the bushes, like where that Ford pickup truck was, and literally we'll just wrap a chain around the fucking front bumper and the hydraulic arm, and then tilt the bed and pull that thing right up onto the bed. It'll have a hydraulic tilt deck, and it'll have that hydraulic arm to pull stuff up onto it. Yeah,
Yeah, and that,
this property that this guy bought, I'm gonna get some other cool vehicles out of there too, because he just sees my enthusiasm for it, and he doesn't.
way cool. I hope you get some of them
Yeah,
cab overs.
I'm not too really like into those. I know they're cool and people like them and stuff, but I think the international truck is way cooler looking than the cab overs. And
Like I
there's
said, if
other
I had
trucks.
time, I'd be loading up the trailer and headed your way. If he was
Oh,
looking to get rid of some of them, whew.
he's
What I've
he is
always wanted
looking
to
to get
do was take a
he's looking
cab
to get
over and put it over, they go up over the front axle. Well, I was going to do it totally different. I was going to build the frame, and then kind of like a dragster kind of frame, a rail, and then you
yeah,
mount the cab over the rear tires instead of the front tires, and you steer it from the back.
yeah, I've
Well,
seen those.
it'd still steer up front, but you're way back over in the back.
Yeah.
There was a guy in Hood, Oregon, that he did one like that. It was in Rat Rod magazine. That's where I got the idea from. And man, that looked good.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one before.
I mean, the cab over he was doing it with, it was trashed. It
Yeah.
was really trashed. So,
Well,
it
this
just
guy
worked.
is willing. He is selling these things. So, and he's not like
Oof.
wanting outrageous amounts of money for some of his stuff. Like he sold a '62 Ford T-Bird for $500.
Oh, Lord. A
A
62?
complete car. Yeah, it was like a '62, '63 Ford T-Bird, and he sold it for $500. I didn't realize it until it was already going and on the trailer.
That's a
I was,
Thunderjet 390.
mhm.
That's a good little FE. It's a first gen FE, but
The whole
uh,
car was complete too. The car
uh,
was complete and like, but it just he looked at it like it was probably really rusty because it was sitting on the ground. Like, so he thought it was just a bucket of rust, and so that's what he priced it as. And we got that car up on a trailer where we could look underneath it, and the floor was solid, and it was like
for 500
undercoated.
bucks, somebody got themselves one heck of a deal.
Yeah, this Mexican guy came up there with his wife and his three daughters and stuff, and he was so happy to get this thing. It was a car like his grandfather owned, and he grew up in it. Like, so for him, it was bringing back childhood memories, just getting the car and seeing it. So it was cool
That's
for
cool.
him. But
It's going to somebody who will do something with it instead of a crusher that'll smash it up and
yeah,
melt it down and send it back to us as a T-post.
that's why I'm glad I'm out there helping this guy, because he's in his 30s. He's 10 years younger than me, but um, just to be able to help them like see like the values in some of these vehicles and things, and like some of the stuff is no, we're never gonna find that track, like that bulldozer track box and axle for this old
That,
international thing, and we don't even know if it'll run.
that's going to be a tough one to fix.
No, yeah, yeah. I just took the cutting torch and I cut it apart, cut all the bolts. I didn't even bother taking bolts out of it. Like literally, I just cut all the bolts to the bell housing, and the motor and engine fell apart. I would. I'm not into trying to save too much stuff. When it's scrap, it's scrap. But there was two bolts that I cut out of that axle, on one side, and it took quite a bit of effort to get them cut out of there. So I went and I found the tools to pull the bolts out, and it was just as much effort. They were like, when I built that tractor, they did not scrimp on and like they didn't care. I'm gonna put a 4-inch bolt in the hole that I only need a 1-inch bolt in, but we're just gonna run a whole long wash in there. But yeah, that thing will be all hauled off Monday.
Well, I sure wish I could get over there. Like I said, I would love to have one of them cabs.
There's 4 of them out there. You come over there and check them out.
You're tempting me. Unfortunately, though, tomorrow I go back on another 7-day run. So, yeah, I'm going to be busy for the next 7 days.
And I think there's like 3 or 4 of just a standard cab of that same body style.
Man, I could load them suckers all right up. Oof.
Yeah.
The rustier, the better. I like the ones that can't be restored. Those are my favorite ones, because then I don't feel bad about cutting them and changing them. If it's too good, I end up in the situation like I did on that 65 Dart. The car's in too good a shape. I can't hurt it. So shut that build down.
Yeah.
Or that 51 Studebaker Land Cruiser I got in the front yard. It's in too good a shape. I can't bring myself to do anything but put it back together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I
guess that's number 4 rule of a rat rod. Well, I'll throw number 4 in there. You can't kill a good car.
Well, the way I look at it,
let a restorer play with it.
Yeah, the way I look at it, like if you have to search and buy, I don't know, 50 to maybe 50 to 100, depends on the car, parts, it's no longer feasible to build it.
To try to restore it and build it back to what it was?
Yeah. Because I've worked in restoration shops and for several years. And I've worked around here. And so I've learned and saw like what cars like I stay away from, like old Cadillacs and old Lincolns, old those big old cars with all that chrome. Stay away from restoring those because you're gonna.
Sorry to say it, but Buicks, Oldsmobiles, be careful with those ones. Those are probably the 2 that you'll get flipped upside down in a hurry in.
Yeah. And I just seen like the
56 Buick is one beautiful car, but it better be all there.
Yeah, I just seen the bills on just the chrome coming back from. You didn't have to buy. You weren't missing nothing, but you just had to have it redone.
Oh, I've seen $4,000 to $5,000 on a hood ornament. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it can put you
to restore and rechrome the original one, because that's the kind of crowd you deal with the restoration stuff. They want the exact same one that was on the car, not go out find another one. No, they want that same one that was on the car.
Yeah.
And that happened to be on a 40 Pontiac, just like the one that's sitting, well, it's the one I use in my logo. It's sitting out front of the shop. And it needs one. And it was one of them. It's also the hood latch. It's the big chief head that comes out, and you grab it and you flip it up, and that's how you open the hood. it's also the latch. So it's actually pretty good size. It's about that long, and it's got the whole mechanism under it for the hood.
Is it the
But
solid chief head?
yep, no,
I
with
have
the lighted center.
Oh, it's the lighted one. I have
But-
parts of one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I happen to need one.
I do think I have parts of one of those. Because I used to
Somebody
work at a
done took mine. Well, before I got the car, somebody had already taken it.
because I used to work at a restoration shop in close to where I live, and then we did. I mean, it was original kind of restoration stuff there. I mean, we had some pretty good clients, museums and different places like that. So, and then they ended up, those guys retired and closed the business down, and I was like basically the last guy standing, helping them. I was helping them. I was gathering all that stuff they were wanting to get rid of because they were like, we're almost in our 80s. We're done with this stuff, man.
That's how I got
eBaying
my
We're not
shoebox,
eBaying
my
it
50 Ford.
no more. Yeah,
Somebody had brought it in wanting to be restored, and well, they found out the bill on it, what it would cost, just the estimation on it. Yeah, oh, I can't afford that, so he sold it to me for $1,200.
oh nice.
The car's hammered. It really is. It's a shoebox Ford. It's full of rust.
Yeah,
That rust on a shoebox has got a Ford part number on it. It's so common.
yeah,
But
but
yeah,
that's
that's how I ended up with it. They come in there
project
with the
should,
big dreams of getting it all fixed up, and at the end of the day, it's a 4-door. So it's not worth a
yeah,
whole bunch.
yeah, and probably for what he could had put into it, he could go buy one.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And
Like I just picked up.
my boss was actually a pretty decent guy. He would do his best to talk people like that out of doing it.
Yeah,
Unless you really got an emotional attachment to this, I wouldn't do it.
yeah, and that's like this the shop that I worked at. I mean, the guys were that I worked for had been doing restoration since they were like 10 and 12 years old, and this like the beginnings of World War II era is when they were restoring cars. So when they were like when the government was going around getting the metal drive, these guys were going around trying to gather all those Ford parts and the
Trying to
alleys
save
and
some back, huh?
yeah, and they were building them. They were taking these cars before the government could get to them and remaking them run again, so then the government wouldn't take them away because they're a running vehicle, and they were keeping them on the street. And I mean, they had black and white photos of them in a Model A Ford pickup truck, convertible one, with a pile of parts in the back of it. The three brothers going down some old little road picking up stuff. And
I remember the
so,
old Model T. Henry Ford sold that kit that you take the turtle deck off, and you could buy that little itty bitty little pickup bed to convert your
yeah,
car into a pickup. It was actually a factory option. It cost you like $20 or something, and you convert your car into a pickup because he didn't make any pickups in the beginning.
yeah. You might have even heard of these guys. the company was called Murray Motor Car. That was the company that I worked for.
Murray, huh?
And
Rings a big
Murray.
bell.
yeah, and the older brother, his name is Al Murray, and his younger brother is Paul Murray, and he
Paul
moved
Murray?
out there. Paul Murray, and he's moved out there to Idaho.
St. Anthony?
I'm not sure what part, but he's early. He has like a Pierce Arrow, like 26 Pierce Arrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, St.
But
Anthony.
the kind of work, that's the kind of cars and stuff that he does, is those early 20s Model A's and Model T's, and
He's
so he
about
has a
an
Ford.
hour and 15 minutes from me, just north of me.
Oh. Huh.
Wow.
Small world. Yeah, I worked with Paul for years. Yeah,
Wow.
he always came
He's
in
got
a little
that
bit
Pace
later.
Arrow in the Chrome in the Dome car show every year.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car.
In Pocatello, that's just south of
Yeah.
me. it's like a big car show at the university.
Huh. Yep, that was my boss, or
Wow.
basically the two brothers owned the business. So
They're right on
that
your
was-
way into Yellowstone National Park.
hmm,
You go right by
Yeah,
their
they're-
shop on your
Oh,
way to
they're-
West Yellowstone and into Yellowstone National Park.
oh, well, the shop that I worked at was over here in Washington, in Monroe, and in like just in the beginning of 2000. No, it wasn't the 2000. It was 2020, I think. They closed their business down. So then Paul moved over there to Idaho. And
Our
Round
laws
Mountain.
over here are a lot more lenient. It's a lot easier to do that kind of stuff here in Idaho.
Yeah, it was more or less like over here. His kids and stuff was going to school, and all of a sudden they like mandated all these shots and all this stuff that normally you didn't have to have. Like your kid didn't have to do that, or it was an option. And now they mandated it. Like your kid don't get this, you can't come to school. So he was just like, I'm not dealing with this, and he pulled his kid out, and they homeschooled him for a year or longer, and then they made plans to move away.
Moved to Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a
And
bunch of you come in. Yeah. More the
the
merrier, I
business-
say. I don't care. Most people
And
that
the-
move here are like-minded anyway, so
Yeah, and the Murray Motor Car business, Al, the older brother, he was, getting in close to 80, and he ran the books and ran the business. And Paul did all the mechanical stuff.
that's
And
what I
they first
did.
were-
I was just the
and when-
mechanical side.
And when they were first doing it, Paul was doing all the mechanical side, and Al was doing all the restoration, like the welding, the painting, all the body work, and all the office work. And he would hire an assistant to help him. But when he ended up hiring me, he was probably about at 75, or between 70 and 75. And he painted for like a year, or about a year, and I was his apprentice, and I took over his painting and everything, and then he just only did the office work. I took over all the welding. I took over all the restoration. And then I worked there for like 2 or 3 years, and we had a really bad snowstorm, and I couldn't make it into work, and they laid me off for it because he was mad because he had to pay the bills out of his pocket because we didn't make enough hours to pay for the electricity and the rent and everything in the place. And then he ended up hiring me back like 3 or 4 years later to help him finish up some projects because they were shutting the doors, and they needed to hire somebody that could just do welding and take a car to paint. You know, let's take this car that's been sandblasted. Now we see all the flaws and the cracks and the fenders and everything, and we need someone to take. We need someone that can just fix all of those rust repairs, and
Paint
then
hides a lot of stuff. You
and then
you
get
take
it
the
all ready.
lipstick off of a pig, and yeah, you end up with a pig.
Oh yeah, and that's what a couple of customers found out with their vehicles that they
Yeah,
bought.
because
One
that's
of
what
the
we'd do too, is take them clear to bare metal, go out and sandblast them down, and start completely over. And
yeah,
boy, you'd see some beautiful cars come in that, they wanted restored and done right. They didn't look too bad at all until you hit them with the sandblaster. Yeah, then you find all the stuff that was hidden in there.
yeah,
Oh,
Murray's they had a really good reputation. So their cars that they would get in were pretty good cars to work with, or they were like cars that are already collections that are, really, a restoration from the 60s that's just been inside its whole entire time, and it doesn't need anything but being like cleaned up and like touched up and anything, if anything more. Um,
the place I
but
worked for, he did a lot for all over. All people from all over the country came to him. Rex's
yeah,
Auto and Restorations, and is what the guy I worked for. And boy, you get some of them from the Great Lakes, yeah, and the Rust Belts. Whew,
oh yeah, like,
yeah,
yeah,
or Salt Lake, yeah.
we wouldn't even that there. It's kind their reputation was on the yuppie level of restoration. I want to say because like if you had a 57 Ford or 57 Chevy or 55 whatever, right? Chevy, a normal make and model, Chevy, Dodge, or
Yeah,
you probably owned a Packard if your car was in their shop, because at that shop we restored Packards and Pierce Arrows and Bugattis and the high end of the classic car world back then, like Studebakers and stuff. Like if there, I mean, they did work on Model A Fords because they were so known for building them for so long. So they would
and
do
you can still buy
early
parts.
model,
You, if you
yeah,
have a Model
and
A Ford, you can buy a brand new door for it. You can buy a brand
yeah,
new 1932 Ford. They're still making the parts. It'll cost you
so
a mint,
yeah,
but there's a company out of Hamilton, Montana, that bought all of the stamps from Ford. So not only are you getting, brand new parts and brand new bodies and stuff, but they're actually stamped with the original stamps, original tooling. So it just comes
that's
from
cool.
Montana now instead of, Michigan.
Detroit or Michigan. Yeah, like when I worked there, I mean, I didn't. I was like making like in the body restoration or body shop world or whatever, I was making the bottom of the barrel on the wages, but I could take as long as I wanted on whatever I want, whatever I was working on. It was to make it perfect. It didn't matter the hours that it took to make it perfect, just make it perfect. And there were some parts of the cars, they were like, it needs to be above that perfect. Like the steering wheel and wherever the owner of the car is gonna stare at the most.
Oh
Whatever
yeah.
you think,
Oh yeah.
wherever you think the owner of the car is gonna look at the most, you make it better than perfect. Like the hood, the top of the hood, where the owner's just staring out his windshield and he's looking across.
The
his road.
dash.
You want that? The dash,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So like this, I did this while I worked there. It's one of my most proudest moments and cars that I worked on was a 28 Packard 4-door convertible, and I put a lot of hours into that car. Like I put 40 hours into a steering wheel alone, just a steering wheel. But it was cracked in a whole lot of different spots, and we had to fix it because that's the only Packard steering wheel we had.
It's probably the only one in existence anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there is other people that collected those parts and hoarded them and stuff, and there's places to get stuff like that, but they're hard to find. They're like needles in haystacks, and how many haystacks you're going to go through before you find a Packard steering wheel that's rebuildable again. So
Was it a
that's one
regular 4-door or sedan, or was it the double cow Packard?
It was what they call a Super 8
Uh-huh.
touring 4-door. It was a 4-door convertible. So, and it was
Super 8 had the straight 8 in it.
Yeah, big straight 8. And we restored the car to like Detroit factory standards, like to the gnat's ass. The car, the owner originally bought the car from Detroit Packard factory, and the owner of the car was the guy's son that originally bought the car from the Packard factory. And when the Depression hit in the 30s sometime, they had to sell the 28 Packard family car to take care of the family. They had to sell it off because it was mainly just a touring car to go on summer road trips. So they sold it. And the guy, the little boy, became the man that he is today. And somewhere along the line, he decides when I get wealthy enough, I'm finding Dad's school Packard and I'm going to fix it back up like it was when I was a little boy because I want it again. And he found his dad's Packard, the serial number and everything. It's his. It was the first owner of the car was his dad. And we rebuilt the car off of these black and white photos that he still had. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did he have any parts cars or anything, or just going straight off of what was there?
No. Well, when I had got into the project, I was already started along, basically. So when I got hired, I had worked there for a month, and then the owner of the car came into the shop and, was looking over his car and stuff and was coming for a visit. And they had been working on his car and collecting parts and his, getting it all together for like 4 years or 3 years before that. So then I did all the paint and body work, and the mechanic, Paul, did all the mechanical stuff, and we got it all put back together within a year of me working on it. And it was like put together where we could drive it and run it. And it was painted. Like it was, the interior was in it. It was good enough to show the customer. And then the customer came back a year later and with his wife and looked at his car, and they got to go for a ride in it and stuff. So it was pretty cool. But it was lots of hours getting that car ready. But it ended up getting invited into Concourse, Pebble Beach, all of the Concourse Elegant car shows that they put out for one full year. So it was pretty cool to be able to do something like that. So, but yeah, that was one of the best shops I worked at. There's not too many old restoration shops like that around anymore. At least not here in Washington.
There we go.
Yeah.
I had to let you take over there while I went and got rid of some coffee.
Okay. I was just telling everybody about the Packard and how it went on to Concourse and Pebble Beach. Concourse
cool.
Elegant. Yeah, it's a 100-point car in that showing. And it went, you're invited. You don't show up to Concourse. You document your car from factory as far back as you can and how well you rebuilt it back to the factory standards. And you send all your documentation into them, and they maybe will accept you and invite you to come into their Concourse Elegant car show. So
It's a little too involved for me.
Yeah, but I just had to do the work on the car. I didn't have to do all that other nonsense. I just had to show up every day and restore this Packard. And that was cool enough. And
my favorite thing about those resto shops, including the one that I was working for, I still hang out with Rex. That is the prime place for parts because, like a Concourse restoration, if somebody's doing one of them, boy, those parts have got to be perfect. So if you're looking for good fenders that are, a little questionable, but you can work them out, there you go. They'll sell them on the cheap.
Yeah.
All the leftovers that they don't use.
Well, these guys would just hoard all those parts, and we have the local swap meet once a year. We used to have 2 of them, but we only
have one every Father's Day.
Oh.
And they tried to get rid of it in the city. They've been after us for a long time to get us out of the city. It finally happened. And the little town just north of me, just barely north of me, picked it up. So we didn't miss it. But that's the only car swap meet, that we have anymore around here.
Yeah. So around over here, we have the V8 Ford Club. They, I think it's like a Washington statewide club,
Uh-huh.
and the Model A Club. I think that one's United States wide too.
You got a
But they,
Studebaker chapter there.
yeah, we have the Seattle Studebaker chapter. I want to get involved with those guys, but I don't think they'd like my car. But
They're a different crowd, I'll tell you that right now.
yeah,
Actually, the
I'm gonna get.
president of it lives right here.
Oh, I'm gonna get
His last
two.
name is Jinx. Real nice
uh,
guy. Real good guy.
I'm gonna get 2 Studebaker pickup trucks off the property. They're like 50 era looking Studebaker pickup trucks.
R1s.
One of them's a flatbed. It's like a 2-ton or 1-ton Studebaker truck. But
That
the
don't
other
matter.
one,
Same cab.
the other one, yeah, the other one's a pickup truck. Like it has the pickup bed still there, and it has the emblem on the front of it. It looks kind of like a little bullseye right on the top of the hood. It's like a round circle
Uh-huh.
with a protruding bullet coming out the front of it. But it's
Those Studebaker
they're
trucks, they're pretty cool. You look at them from the side, they look like they've been chopped, but they're not. They're stock that way. That I always like that about the Studebakers. Hudsons too,
yeah.
but good Lord, if you get a hold of a Hudson, hang on to it.
Oh yeah.
But I always like that about the Studebaker. Even their cars. Well, like that Land Cruiser I got out there, the bullet nose. You look at it from the side. Everybody asked me how I chopped it. I didn't. The side windows, are only about that big, about that tall. They're real small.
So that's a bullet nose.
Mm-hmm. 51 last year of the bullet nose.
I thought they only made the bullet nose car.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, the Land Cruiser is a car.
Oh,
It's the big one. Well, there's one bigger, the presidential, but yeah, those are really rare. The Land Cruiser was the common man's big bird, it's Studebaker's Cadillac is what it is.
Yeah. So have you heard of a shop? It's in eastern Washington in a little town called Harrington.
Harrington?
And and it's a Studebaker museum actual shop too.
I've heard of it. It's an
they
old
can
gas station, right?
No, it's an old Ford dealership.
Oh, dealership. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a cool old
I haven't.
brick building, but they made it a Studebaker museum. But it's it's a cool. The reason I worked there for a short period of time. It's like a Ford dealership from the 50s or maybe even from the 20s. It has like skylights for lighting inside of it. It doesn't have hardly any lighting. It's really dark in there, but it had skylighting for lights and lots of windows. And,
Way cool.
I don't know.
I've been to the one in Helper, Utah, that little mining town in Utah. It's like that, but it's not specific. Well, I take that back. One half of it is nothing but Harley, and he's got hundreds of old Harleys in one side of it. And then the other side of it, where used to be the service bay and stuff of the dealership, that's all cars, but it's not specific. He's got like a 60 Corvette, a a
Now this
53
this place,
Studebaker Texaco pickup, all kinds of, cars.
yeah, this place was particularly Studebakers. They restored them, had the contacts to get all the old like parts and different things. And
But that town is kind of neat because they line them up all the way down the street too. The old main street that goes through the old town, the old original town of Helper, it's
yeah,
all decked out like, stepping back into the 50s. And it's
yeah,
kind of a walking museum, the
that's
whole
what
main street.
the owner of the Studebaker Museum was trying to do to the Harrington town. Like he didn't really, I don't know if he was town council or president or something like that, but he was like, if you drive a classic car, I can get you a better deal on a house. You know, if there's a 50 era car that's nice and driving in your front driveway and it parks out there all the time, we'll find you a nice home. You know, it's like, because I was looking for a place out there because I was wanting to move away from this rat race of Seattle side of the mountain
Hey,
and move to the slower side of town. And I was gonna live there and move out there, but the owner of the place, he ended up passing away after I only had my job for like a month, and he tripped and fell and hit his head and had caused all this these health issues that were in the that had he kind of got over them in the past, but all of a sudden they just kind of all came back on him, and he was in his upper 70s, 80 years old, and you just can't take a fall on your forehead like that when you're that age on the concrete.
no kidding. I couldn't do it now at this age.
Yeah, so his shoulders and his arms were so wore out he couldn't lift his hand to barely touch his nose, and so falling face first, he just couldn't even lift his hands quick enough to catch himself. His head just hit the ground. That's what they said, anyways. I didn't see it happen. We had a we were having a car show at his shop, and I was walking around looking at the cars when it happened. I came back to the
Oh
shop,
Lord.
and everybody had just like came up to me, "What, John, did you know what happened to Al? Did you see what happened to Al?" And I'm like, "No, what happened to Al?" And he's like, "He's out back in the aid car. You need to go out there and talk to him and see him." I went out there because I was basically filling his shoes in a sense, like keep because his museum shop that he had going, he couldn't really run it and work on the cars for the customers. And he lived downtown, like kitty corner from the shop. So when I got hired, he basically said, he came over in the morning and unlocked the door and said, "Here's the key to the door. Lock it when you go to lunch. When you come at the end of the day, when you lock it up, walk over to my house and
Drop
knock
the
on the
keys
door.
in the slot.
Yeah, knock on the door and come in and set the key down here. And then in the morning, I'll come over and have coffee with you, and then we'll walk over here and open it up." And he's like, "Just keep the roll-up door open, and I'll be able to sit in my easy chair and look out the window out of my house, and I could see you're working on something." And that's all that was it. Like he didn't come over there and fucking watch over me, or he'd give me instructions in the day. Can you try to do these things? And there you go. You know,
So you're
we're
over closer to like Kent or Auburn or
no like close to I-90 and like Snoqualmie Pass, like North Bend and stuff that's right along I-90. It's like 15 minutes from where I'm at.
okay, so you are a little bit away from the Seattle hubbub, huh?
Oh yeah, there
Oh, okay.
Seattle, like downtown Seattle's like
Crazy.
45 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on the traffic. So I don't really go down there too much for anything. Like I don't need anything in town there. Sometimes I go down with my Studebaker because the lowrider guys are down in Seattle in a bigger city, and they'll go down there and they'll gather up together and they'll go on these cruises and they'll just meet like at a certain restaurant or someplace and they'll wait for a couple hours until everybody kind of shows up, maybe get some food, and then they'll decide, okay, let's drive up to this part of Seattle and we're all going to show up there and park for an hour or something, and then they'll go to a different area and they'll just drive around,
Cruise
you
nights
know.
and rod
Yeah,
runs.
cruise.
You betcha.
I mean, their cruise nights are, they meet up around sometimes 3, 4, 5 o'clock, but they're not. They'll cruise until 2 o'clock in the morning.
They still
So
have the big Puyallup car show,
yeah,
or
yeah.
I think it's the fair, right? Or just before the fair?
Yeah, it's before the fair. Like
Before. Yeah,
Good Guys car show is at the Puyallup Fairgrounds.
that's a
The
big
early,
show.
yeah, the early bird swap meet is at the Puyallup Fairgrounds.
Fairgrounds.
That that's the first classic car swap meet, but like a couple weeks or a week before that is the four-wheel drive swap meet, and that's only like off-road vehicles and
Uh-huh.
off-road 4x4 stuff. And but I do find a lot of hot rod stuff there for super cheap because there's a lot of people
Yeah,
that
you got
have
to hit them both.
they have the sand drag jeeps and sand rails, and they like
Uh-huh.
they're drag race vehicles, so they have drag race, you know, stuff there, blowers and stuff, and they're cheaper there than if you go to the early bird and you're at a hot rod
Hot
classic
rod
car
one.
swap
Yeah.
meet. A blower there is like crazy money, but then it's a few $100s at the fucking four-wheel drive swap meet. It's just okay. But yeah, those are the two beginner swap meets for the year. And
It's
then
been a long
on,
time ago, but I have been to the Puyallup one. Well, I had an aunt that lived in Puyallup
yeah, and
and a
then
stepsister that lived, well, she still lives in Kent.
we have on Father's Day, like you have your swap meet there on Father's Day. We have the day before Father's Day, we have a church out here. It's called the Maltby Church, and it's a free car show, no entry to get in, but there's actually trophies and a judging. And have you heard of a guy called, his name's Lance Lambert? He did like the classic car TV show, and it
Chris Lambert.
played
It
on.
rings a bell, but I'm
Yeah,
not good with names.
he's famous. I mean, he's done. I don't know how many. He said I was on Channel 9. He was like, originally my TV show was on Channel 9, but then after so many episodes and hours of doing it on Channel 9, the big cable network picked me up, and so he's cable TV whatever, famous.
Kind of like Stacy David.
Yeah. So he just does like car shows and interviews people. He's kind of like the guy with the handlebar mustache that does the
Oh, yeah,
classic car.
yeah.
He's kind of like him,
I
but
met
he's
him in
before.
Wendover
Before.
during Speed Week.
Yeah, he's
What the heck
before
is his
him.
name? The guy with the mustache.
I know. Yeah, I don't remember. But
Yeah,
Lance
talked to him for
Lambert.
about 20 minutes.
Yeah, Lance Lambert had. I think he was almost one of the originators of like going to car shows and interviewing people and like showing their car and being able to like put it on TV for people to see. But he hosts the car show at the Maltby Church the day before Father's Day. And for our area, when we do that car show, it's a big car show, and it's like we've got 800 to 900 some odd cars coming. Last year was
Wow.
small because last year was small, and we got like 400 or 500, but it was raining.
It always rains there.
Yeah, it always rains here. So none of the really nice cars came out and stuff. You know, people didn't want to
Just
bring
the
their really nice
diehards.
stuff out. I brought my Scout 800. It's a 67 Scout 800. And normally I would have brought my Studebaker there, but it was too rainy to drive the convertible with no top. So
With
I
no
was just like,
top? Yeah.
yeah, no top. So I was just like, I'll bring the Scout 800. It's still classic,
Yeah,
and
it
I
is.
took it to that show plenty of times. So
That little Studebaker's more like a double roadster.
yeah,
No top.
yeah, basically. And
Have
then
you
the
ever thought of
on,
going to the Rat Pink family reunion in Manti, Utah?
yeah, I mean, I do want to do some longer trips in it. I'm trying to find somebody that's around here locally that's like, yeah, let's go do that too, and like not be on the road all by myself. But
The closest guy that I know to you, well, there's Dead Dodge Garage. He's not too far from you.
yeah,
And the other one is Heaven's Mopar, but he's in Spokane. That's still a little ways away from you.
yeah, that's not too far. I mean,
And then there's
what I thought
Ollie.
about.
Ollie's Garage is in Vancouver, which is still a long ways away from you.
Yeah, Ollie's Garage.
He's a
We've
great
talked.
guy.
Yeah, we've talked about getting together and stuff, and he calls me and tells me when the swap meets are down there, and I'm like, I can't make it, it's too far. And I tell him the swap meets are out here, and he's like, I'm not making this too far. But
Uh,
he's a character.
he's one of my favorite guys on here. Every once in a while, I'll throw a Ford one up there just to see if I can get Ollie in there. Ah, there he is. Great.
Yeah, I've been trying to get him to come out on that to this piece of property too to look at some stuff because he's all
Oh,
into
Lord,
Ford.
yeah.
This property's full of Fords. I mean,
He needs
there's
one
so
of them
many.
cab overs.
Yeah, but I can't get him to come out and look at this stuff. Yeah, the Father's Day car show is. I know it's probably far for you guys. I've been trying to get Oli to come too, and I really want more YouTuber guys to come to this Father's Day car show. They hold it at the Monroe Fairgrounds.
Oh, in Monroe?
In Monroe.
Is it in on Evergreen Speedway or?
Yes.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Monroe Fairgrounds. The Evergreen Speedway is the Monroe Fairgrounds.
If anybody's watching, that is one cool motorsport park. Out of all the ones that I've been to, it's one of my favorites. Evergreen Speedway, or I think they still just call it that, right?
Yep. So
Yeah,
everything's State
beautiful
Fairgrounds.
place.
Everything's legal.
Great
Yeah.
tracks too. Multiple
And they're
tracks. They
building.
got dirt track.
They've
They got an
built,
asphalt track.
they've built new buildings, really big new buildings, and it
If you
has
search
food
the
vendors.
internet for Thumper at Evergreen Speedway, you get to see our monster truck there.
Oh, nice. Yep, we do little monster truck events there, and lots of different kinds of race cars, race car events.
We
Drift
loved
track.
Monroe. That was one of our favorite shows
a
was
drift-
there.
It's a drift track every Sunday
Hmm.
for open drift is what they call it, and you pay $50, and you can go in there and sling your car sideways and burn your tires off as much as you want. They don't care.
And the
And
track guys, the guys that own the track they're cool as all get out. Some of the best
Oh, yeah.
people we've ever met.
They're all drivers. Most of them
Mhm.
all are. And the track is big enough and popular enough to get the professional drift track racing
Oh
to
yeah.
come to our track. It's National Drift Track Racing. That's where I got my tires for my car. Like literally, I went to the track when the professionals were racing, and I tried to get some used tires, and the guys that were changing all the tires said, no, you can't have those ones. But if you want some souvenir tires, go by the driver's pits, and you can get the ones that have the sidewalls, big drill holes put in there. They're garbage, and they'll sign them for you. And I'm like, I don't want garbage ones. I want ones to put on my car. And I stood there and I talked to the guy and I told him what I was wanting to do with them. And he was like, I know, I would really like to give it to him, but I can't. And I'm watching his two tire guys change tires in this like 70, 80-degree weather. And they're hot and they're fatigued. And I grew up in a tire store. I'm like, how about this? I'll change tires for the rest of the day for you for tires. Your guys need a break. I'll take one of their spots and I'll just sit there and change tires. When that guy gets rested up, then he can let that guy take a break. And we'll sit there and alternate. I don't even need a break. Just keep me water and I'll just run. And he's like, you know how to run that machine? I'm like, yep. He's like, grab a wheel and tire and put it on there and show me. And I just went at it. And I changed tires for our professional drift track racers. Like the pros, dude. Like NASCAR fucking level of drift track racing. It was so cool just to be able to change tires for those guys. And
That's too
I got
cool.
there, and they gave me 6 of those tires for free that you can't buy. They're because they're race car tires. And that's what I run on the Studebaker, because everything that has a Studebaker came for free. It came in a spiritual manner, and that's how it got into my path, to build the car.
Like I said, that's all part of the rat rod mystique, and it's hard to explain it to people, but yeah, you got to get out and build one. It's spiritual. You nailed it right there.
Basically.
And liberating, just totally liberating.
It is. And like I like taking it to that Father's Day car show because there's so many fathers and sons go into it. And it's a big car show at that Monroe race, like Evergreen State Fairgrounds.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we're talking 1,000+ cars there.
And a beautiful place. The camping facilities right there where you can park and camp. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just
right there.
That is
right
one
there
good
at the
place.
fairgrounds. So
Mhm.
like if you brought your car and your trailer there, your camper is you can walk from your car in the car show to your motorhome. It's just
Mhm.
right across the way. It's not too far at all. And even last year, it rained. It was raining in the beginning of the show. I still think we had close to 700 some odd cars. And then the icing on the cake of the show, all of the money from us bringing our cars to show them, because you have to pay to show your car there, and any other money that's donated is all given to like the Boys and Girls of America. They donate it all to kids that don't have
Uh-huh.
a proper house and family, and like the Boys and Girls clubs that are all over the United States. This car
That's
show
pretty cool.
funds that, and they make serious amount of money. Like we're talking $200,000-$300,000 to give to them. So it's like to be a part of it, and it's pretty special just to be a part of that car show, because your money that you're normally going to a car show, you're paying 30 or 40 bucks to enter your car. Where's that going? To the trophies, to the rental of the grounds, to the porta potties there. That's where it's going. This car show, I'm sure the Monroe Fairgrounds donates the property to the guys running the car show. And all the proceeds go to the Boys and Girls of America.
Don't they do interactive too? They do like a burnout or
Yes,
uh,
they do.
what else?
They actually, when you're at the car show, they'll announce it during the day.
Yeah.
They say, hey, if you guys have entered or wanted to enter into the loud pipe competition,
Yeah, loud pipe.
we're holding a loud pipe competition at this time, so get yourself registered if you want to. And directly after the loud pipe competition, we're doing the burnout competition.
Burnout contest.
And there's not very many car shows in my area that do either of those. So,
We have
I'm
one in Rigby, and they also do 100-yard dash there. That it's actually right in downtown Rigby, Idaho. They close off one of the streets, and then they have street light, little race there. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You don't see that very often anymore. Well, where a city will actually close the street down so you can race on it.
Yeah, that's cool. And at the Monroe Fairgrounds, so when they announce it that they're gonna do the loud pipe, they'll announce it on the microphone. You get in your car wherever you're parked in the car show, and then everything's spaced out enough in the car show that you can get in your car, you fire your car up, you drive your car nice and calmly through the car show of all the cars, and you drive out to the racetrack. And
then you run on the track.
And you run on the track. You park your car on the track, facing your exhaust towards the grandstands. And then it's a crowd reaction of who's moving on. And when it comes down to the last two guys or two people or two cars, then they pull out an actual loudness tester, SBL or whatever they call that
meter.
Decibel meter. Yeah. They pull out this and they say over the microphone, we're pulling out the decibel meter now because we want real numbers. We are going off your crowd of how loud you are for each vehicle. We're going to measure your decibels too, crowd. So hear as loud as you want for the car that you want to win. But we're going off the decibel meters to see what car is actually loudest too. So I did it the last 2 years in a Studebaker. And the first year I did it, a drift car beat me. It was running an LS motor with twin turbos and alcohol engine, and that thing could just light up, backfire, shoot flames 3 foot out the exhaust, and it was just like blowing boom, boom, boom every time he hit the rev limiter. So he beat me.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to compete with fire.
Yeah. So, and it's not a street car. He drove it in on a trailer. He didn't drive it in off the street. So the crowd really wanted me to win. And where I parked my car in the area of all the guys and people that were parked in my area that year, when I was driving my car back to my parking spot, there was a group of like 10 or 15 guys going to complain. No, this guy should have won. His car is a street hot rod. That car is a race car. It is not a show car. It should be on the racetrack. And they went and complained. But I don't know if I didn't hear anything back from them, but I just thought that was cool if those guys were thought that much about my car. But this last year, I went to the car show again with the Studebaker, and it was raining. Like, I pulled into, as soon as I crossed over the river into Monroe, it was like a waterfall coming down. And I'm like, shit, I'm soaked before I get to the car show. I mean, I'm in an open top bucket here. Just drive it to the car show. I got a Harbor Freight canvas, like army colored canvas tarp, and I brought that with me because I knew I might need it. So when I parked and I got in the lineup to get ready to pull into the car show, I was waiting for a friend, and I jumped out of my car and quickly just grabbed that thing and threw it over the engine and over the driver's seat, and I sat there and I just let the back seats get soaked.
That's the tough part about driving an open engine. Yeah, they don't like rain. They don't like rain at all.
Yeah, so I covered it up and sat there and waited, and my buddy showed up, and then we could pull into the car show and be parking next to each other. And I just uncovered the motor enough for it to run and not drag this tarp up into the engine. And I kept it over my head, and I just drove through there and got the car parked. And he had brought a pop-up tent, so I put that over my car. And then the officials at the car show, I talked to them, and there was these big canvas tents that they have at the fairgrounds, and there was open area underneath that. People were parking underneath it, and I went and got permission to park up underneath that. So I was out of the weather, but then
you Washington guys, you're diehards.
But partway through the day, the weather cleared up and it got nice and sunny. So it was good. I mean, it turned out to be a really good day. And then they announced the loud pipe stuff. So I got signed up and got my car over there and got lined up in there to do the loud pipe. And everybody gathers around from the whole car show right there around the track to listen and watch this. And it was pretty fun. I won last year at the loud pipe competition, and the car on the decibel meter, it hit 194 decibels.
You pull your baffles out, or do you run baffles?
I don't
in
run
your
baffles.
legs? They're just
I don't run them.
straight open.
Yeah, they're just wide open headers, but the lake pipes are brass, and it's 5-inch round and 5 foot long brass. And if you flick it with your finger, it just rings. So like the explosions going through there are amplified extremely. The exhaust sound coming through it. So,
They don't bother you for that?
No.
Cops,
It's loud. I try to when I'm driving it, I try to run it at that RPM that's just the mono low rumble of the car.
About 2 grand, 2,500
Yeah,
right in there.
yeah. And like the car, you look at it, I mean, it's open wheels. I mean, the cops just, I
Well,
don't
you guys have
think
open
stop.
wheel law there, don't you? In Washington?
Yeah. And my boss, uh, Al Murray, his
Uh-huh.
dad, actually got
Got
that
that.
stuff
Got that
passed,
passed for you guys.
got the lawyers and everything to have that passed, like uh, uh, horse and carriage law or whatever it is.
Yeah. Here
So
it's got
yeah,
to be under a certain weight. If as long as you're under that weight, you don't have to run fenders.
uh, yeah, the,
And I know there for a long time in Washington, it had to have bumpers on it too.
I don't have no bumpers on my car, front or rear. I got little frame horn rails that stick out the front. That's about it.
You guys were really restrictive there years ago, but I've
Yeah,
heard they've lessened up. People like your boss there stepped in and got a lot of that passed over for you.
yeah, yeah. And then I put on like on at the car show when we were pulling out or getting ready to pull out to go to the loud pipe thing. I brought an extra set of tires, and I got them from my buddy. He used to race oval track cars at the fairgrounds there, and so I got some of his Hosier race car slicks off of
Oh
the
yeah,
oval track car
good
that
old
weren't like
Hooters.
they weren't totally wore out completely, and my car's so lightweight it just doesn't take too much rubber off the tires. So I did a 2-minute burnout, and you can't even tell on the tires that they're wore out, that I burned out for 2 minutes on them.
I got
But
an old set of them too. I need to use them.
they
Need to
make
use them
good
up so they can get them out of the shop.
they make good smoke. I mean, that if you ever tuned into the lives when uh, 615 Customs does his lives,
Oh yeah.
but like when he was doing them a couple of years ago, and I had the garage, and the Studebaker was in the garage all the time, and I would get on live and do a burnout in the garage. And Robert would always be like, John, do a burnout. You know Robert's garage? He's a character.
Well, we've been on for about 3 hours now. I think I better pack it in for the night. John Show Car Builder, thanks a million for coming on in tonight and sharing your stories and stuff. Love to hear them. And everybody who hasn't checked out his channel, go check him out. He's got some good stuff.
Yeah.
Check out that little
We try to-
Studebaker, man. Little Studebaker.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody in
Cool.
the chat for coming out. Dan, John, you're more than welcome in here any old time. We'll talk about anything.
All right. It was fun being here talking with
Keep me posted on those Cavovers, or at least all of them. One of us has got to get one.
Yeah, I'll take some pictures and send them to you on the Instagram thing.
Sure, I'm not on Instagram. YouTube is the only social media I do.
All right. Well, then I'll take some videos, and then you'll just have to watch them.
There you go. Do it all in a video. That's even better. We'll get you some views and some likes all at the same time.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks a
You have a
million,
good
everybody,
night.
for coming out. I'll try to
Yep.
do this again next week. Ooh, yeah, I'm on a 7-day run, so we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
I'll do my best to get these up and regular again for you guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
And get out there and get some metal hot. It's fun, and play with the rat rods. They're liberating, and just like John says here, they're spiritual. They're a spiritual awakening. They're just fun. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Thanks for coming.
Bye.